The dreaded recording in progress. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Tattoos and Toddlers. On this episode, I have another special guest. I mean, what am I really saying here? Every guest on this podcast is special to me. And everybody has been personally invited, or I've met them on the street and say, "Hey, come be on my podcast." But I get so lucky that I meet the coolest people in my promoting passion community that I insisted that my guest come on today and share all about what it's like to have this business and life and family and art, all these things together. So, Tim, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, how are you?
Doing well. Introduce yourself.
Hey, so my name's Tim Dunn. And I'm kind of I guess a jack of all trades creatively. Started off as a musician, transitioned into photography, which then led me to video, and now I actually build guitars. I do woodworking. So that's kind of all over the place. Kind of brought it full circle, which is nice. I'm building the vessel that you can make music with, as a musician. So, yeah.
And I think that's great because for those of us who have been following a little bits and pieces of your journey over the last, I don't know, several years, at least for me, I'm like, oh, Tim does video. But then all of a sudden, Tim is making guitars, not just. I mean, I love the fact that you're definitely exploring all the things that make you, right? Every medium of art forms. I love that you have music and then the instrument. You have the instruments and the music, and then you have the art, the visuals, you have the photography and the video. And we all know that they have different ways of presenting themselves. I just love that.
Thank
And
you.
what we were talking about before we recorded here is the fact that when we start on any of these journeys or any of these pathways, it involves most times some kind of community, whether we're starting a family, whether we're starting a new business, or you're starting a new art form. So I kind of wanted to talk about that today. And you can pick any of these mediums, by the way, any of these mediums that you've mentioned, that how community has kind of really helped you, or is there a specific thing that we want to talk about regarding community today?
Well, oh, nervous now.
Heavy question.
I know. I think for me, it's been tough because so I grew up in Connecticut, and I had all my friends, grew up together, and then I met my wife, and well, girlfriend at the time, but I followed her to New York City. So we lived in New York for 4 years. And by doing that, we kind of left everyone that I knew behind and had to kind of make new friends. And then we moved up to Boston, and kind of the same thing. Everyone that we met, we kind of had to leave again. And I, what ended up happening is, by that time, we were in our mid 20s when we moved to Boston. And most of the people that we were meeting were professionals, like people we knew through work, things like that. So I didn't really have any artist friends. And I kind of found that just became very difficult because when you don't have someone that you can necessarily easily talk to about what you do and what they do and share tips and things along those lines, someone that like really gets you in that aspect. And my wife does. She tries, that's for sure. But I'll start talking about things and she just kind of smiles and nods and says, "Yeah, okay, sure, well, whatever." But but really having people that get you in that aspect, I was lacking. So I think we met through promoting passion,
Yeah.
and by joining that community, it really it gave me the opportunity to meet other people that were like me, that try to balance their full-time lives along with their artistic careers and kids and everything. And it's so tough to balance all of that, the full-time job, if you're not doing your art full-time,
Yeah.
which I don't. I have a full-time job. I try to squeeze this in on the side, which is tough because it pulls you away from your family, and it's trying to balance that, which is just difficult. But having people that understand that you can talk to and just kind of vent sometimes is pretty awesome, you know, and I think it's just necessary. It's something you absolutely need.
I was gonna say, yeah, like when I first walked into starting a family, I mean, me and my husband waited 12 years to start having a kid, and the best thing that ever happened to me as a new mom, knowing that I was the sole provider for this little tiny human for a good chunk of that first year, right?
Yeah.
The first thing I tried to do was find some kind of community to get me through that season of my life. And I think seasons of our lives need different community sometimes.
Hmm.
And I found myself just now in this new season of my life that sometimes you just need a friend. You don't need anybody else as far as, I don't need a coach or a mentor or a personal trainer or all these other things that have, they're great tools to have and great support systems. But sometimes you just need to sit down and have a friend and somebody who can get to know you and relate to you and what you're going through. And I feel like what we found in the art community is something I know I was lacking in the photography community because there's just I feel like there's a checklist of things that I have to meet before I can become a part of that community is what it felt like for a really long time. With the art community, I feel like we don't have checklists. We just want to show up as we are and
Yeah.
be accepted exactly where we are instead of here's the things that are wrong that you don't fit into this mold and you can't be a part of this group because we can't talk these things with you.
Yeah.
Have you ever experienced some form of community where you felt like you didn't measure up and you're like, well, what's the point of being a part of it if I don't measure up and don't have that acceptance?
You know, I haven't. There is a second community I'm a part of,
Ooh.
which yeah. So, and this one's awesome. And I'm not going to say the name of it.
Yeah, we're gonna keep that,
Yeah. But it's a Facebook group. And I was so lucky to get invited to this because it's related to parenting.
mm,
So the group I was invited by a guy Chris that I was friends with that played in another band. So when I was playing out live before my daughter was born, um we reconnected on Facebook and he invited me to this group and it's um there are two requirements to be in the group. A,
ooh.
you have to be a parent, and B, you had to have had played in a metal band at some point.
I love this.
Yeah. Yeah,
It had to be
it's awesome.
metal, right?
Yep. And it's only dads. So it's a dads group.
Aw.
And it's great because even though I don't necessarily contribute as much with questions or things like that,
Yeah.
I've seen so many people just vent their frustrations and get good, solid answers from other dads who, you know, feel the same way or have, you know, have run into the same struggles. And that could be anything from relationship issues to, you know, parenting.
Yeah.
And it's especially for dads, I think, because I feel like for moms, I don't know if maybe there's more out there, more available, or women in general are just more apt to to try to communicate.
Yeah.
Um, with dads or men, I think there's a lot of, you know, oh, I don't want to talk about my feelings, and I mean, you know, in 2024 we talk about this all the time, but you know, with men and their mental health and
Yeah.
not really coming out and speaking about the things that are bothering them.
Yeah.
And I've watched this group be so amazing for so many people. And every once in a while, you know, I have something that I'll throw in. But you know, a lot of times maybe it's just throwing in my experience as a comment, you know, for someone. And you read through some of these comments and it's just it's amazing to see how everyone is willing to help each other out in this group. I love it. And I think for any parent out there, they should find something that fits them. And I think that's what's cool about this because everyone has that
Yes.
one common thing. They're a musician. And even so specific that it's been in like a rock or a metal band or something like that. So we can talk about, you know, gigging or bands that we've gone and seen or things like that, but we can also come in and say like, I'm having a really hard day. My kids are crazy. Um, So that's been awesome. I haven't been part of something that I didn't feel like I fit because just being honest, I never really tried to get into any sort of a group. Um, I was always the type of person that just wanted to try to deal with everything myself,
Yeah.
which never it was a terrible idea. It
Doesn't
was an
always
absolute
go
terrible
that
idea.
good, that well. Yeah.
Yeah, no, not at all.
Feel you on that. Yep.
Yeah, if I can recommend anything, it's find someone to talk to, if you need it. Even if you think you need it, you might find like maybe not, but um therapy, or I've done therapy, and it completely changed everything. I'm a between promoting passion, between some therapy that I went through just to kind of like figure my own stuff out. I'm a completely different person, and it's been amazing.
I wholeheartedly agree on that too. Same for me. Same happened for me. It was a mixture of community and personal intense therapies that really helped me figure out what in the world was going on, and especially being a brand new mom, brand new parent, trying to figure out how the heck do you deal with this and still want to run your business and
Yeah.
work because certain expectations come with whether we like it or not. The society tells us that you have to do this, this, and this to be in this kind of conformity. And I've always known that I didn't want to be a stay-at-home parent. I wanted to still work a little
Hmm.
bit here and there and have flexibility. But there's judgments that come with that. There's just so many different identity crisis potentials, at least for me in that phase of my life, right before I got some help as well. Because I was like, if I didn't have community to get me through that first year,
Hmm.
and then all of a sudden I'm like, having a plummeting moment. I'm like, where would I go from here? Well, then I was like, I finally found out in the last year, 6 months, whatever, that I'm very much an external processor and it's okay.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I can't talk to myself in the mirror and do affirmations because it's just weird. I'm
You
like
know,
I'm like, "Jen, you're really cool." I don't know if I could do face to face with myself, but I love externally processing with other people and having
hmm
conversation because I feel like I get my own answers if I talk them out sometimes. I
Yeah.
was like, I never
Yeah.
feel like I have to vent, but I was like, what if I talk out my own solution? You never know.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. There is absolutely no rule book for parenting, but I feel
Nope.
like every parent out there thinks that they wrote it. I mean, really, everyone has an opinion, and I know we felt that in the beginning. And I mean, and this was, I have an 11-year-old now. As we were joking around before the
Weaning.
call. Yeah. We should change this episode to tattoos and tweens. Um, it doesn't get easier. It doesn't. Um, but I remember in the beginning, everyone kind of trying to say, how you should do it. And it's like, no, no, like we're gonna figure this out. Because that doesn't sound right. Maybe that works for you, but we've got a different idea. And it's kind of crazy because then I feel like you get stressed out a little bit, thinking like, am I doing this all wrong? And it's like, no, you're doing it perfectly fine.
And
Um,
I don't know about y'all, but as far as digging into your own personal pasts and dealing with how you were raised individually as two separate people coming into this, partnership with your partner. Zach and I were raised completely different yet similar.
mhm.
We had some similar threads, but our expectations of each other when we took this survey of like, here's the expectations he has of me, and here's the expectations I have of him. And boy, did we have a few things that were like, like,
Yeah,
what?
yeah.
It was
Well,
very telling on how I was looking at myself and how I was raised and how I wanted to do something similar or different than how I was raised. Do you find yourself thinking about that kind of stuff too?
um, so interesting. Um, I won't get into my wife's side of things.
Stick with you, but
Yeah, yeah. But at least on my end, I so my father left when I was young.
Mm,
So I was like 5 years old. And so I had a lot of fill-ins for
Mm,
that
yeah.
father role.
Yeah.
My grandfather, but excuse me. My grandfather was, how old at the time? I mean, he recently passed and he was early 90s. So, I mean,
Oh,
either way, like, my father figure was in World War II. So
yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
there's kind of a gap there. So I think I kind of felt like I had to figure it all out on my own in a sense. Like I didn't have that role model growing up to really decide how to be a father. I mean, I had my mother, sure, but
Yeah.
you know, I think being a mother and being a father are kind of two different things. They're vastly different. There's a connection between a child and the mother that, I don't think the father will ever have. You can try and you can try to build it and you can get there. But
Yeah.
initially, that connection between a child and a mom is such a beautiful thing. That, I think until you can build it up, the father can really only be envious of that. um, which is weird to say, but it's true. I mean, I didn't carry my daughter for 9 months, so I don't have that same intimate connection that my wife has. But yeah, no, I mean, not having a father around early on meant, I taught myself how to shave. I mean, thankfully I have a daughter, so it's it's a lot easier. I don't know, like my wife's got to handle a lot of that. Um,
Aw.
I know, but she goes to work in the mornings and I'm at home because I work at home most of the time. So there is a lot I have to try to attempt to navigate. I think I'm doing all right. We'll
Yeah,
ask them later.
as a new parent, I was an older parent, so I had Miracle at 40. Okay. So I was
Hmm.
already like, we're gonna do this no matter what. I've already done the math. When she's 40, I'll be 80. I have to think, every once in a while I think about that, but then I don't think about it. And then I think about every single year that I've kept her alive. And I think that's really where I'm at is like raising a decent human being and I know there's a lot of things that we have to learn. Like it overwhelms me sometimes. I know that you're a little bit ahead of me on this, but
Mm,
sometimes it's overwhelming to think about how much she's learning right now and how much she's growing and just reading, writing and absorbing the world and how to think and do problems. And
hmm.
I sit here and thinking like because I've already lived through that.
Well, but and
But
this is something I'm learning. Segue.
I don't mind segues.
Yeah. Um, I it's the internet. It really is. I mean, think about it. When we were kids, so I'm 41, and I mean, we didn't have the internet. We didn't have this access to information
No.
that kids have nowadays. I mean, we had the TV guide. Remember that?
Oh, of course. We had the 5 channels on the TV with the rabbit
Yeah.
ears.
And you're like, you're circling the things in the TV guide saying the TV is mine at this time, like, but it's crazy. So my daughter is in fifth grade. She's 11, she's in fifth grade, and I can't even think of a word better than flabbergasted. I know, right? But at how insane the things that fifth graders need to deal with in 2024. That I mean, we were still kids, and some of the things that come up in her school or in her class or situations that she ends up in, I'm just fifth grade, and
Yeah.
it's crazy. And I truly believe it's this access to the internet. It's having all of this information that they shouldn't know yet, but they do, and it's crazy.
Yeah.
um I don't it's
They'll never know the rotary phone. And
no, 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 and things like, I mean, uh, I don't, trying to think of the best things to bring up, but you know I think in an example, like suicide has come up.
Mhm.
She's in fifth grade.
Mhm.
I didn't even know what that was. in fifth grade, and it's insane to me that they do, and that they have to try. They grow up basically so much faster.
Very much
Um,
faster.
yeah, and even development and all that other stuff seems to happen so early now, as opposed to I think when we were younger, hormones in the chicken maybe, but so that's a thing, and I don't know, it's crazy.
It's definitely different times. Definitely
Yeah.
different times. And I think that obviously, yeah, being an older parent now, I'm sitting here like, okay, and it just every once in a while it blows my mind the access to the generational things that I have knowledge to that she never get to experience. That doesn't mean that I can't be like, let's dance between these worlds here. Let's get offline, we go out and do something, or we get online and go do something.
Hmm.
Um, I like I just like that we do have choices that we can make as parents right now to, it's because our worlds were so different back then. And it's like we can make choices. At least how I was raised, you get on your bike and you ride down the street. But it's like here you got to get on your bike, put on your helmet, put on your all the other things that they require you to do, right? And
Yeah.
then, right now I'm like, I don't even know how to help my daughter ride a bike or tie a shoe. Gonna be really honest, because I was like, I don't even know how to teach that. I don't know how my
Yeah.
parents did it. Like, these are the things that I think about right now. Like, the seemingly simple things that we do every day that we had to learn when we were little, right?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, it's just wow.
And let's face it, you could just Google it.
I could YouTube it.
Yeah. How to teach a kid to ride a bike. I mean, we have that access now too, which I think though that our generation, we still have that understanding of analog. We
Yeah.
understand digital, but we also understand analog.
Yeah.
And that's something that I'm really trying to make sure my daughter understands. So, I mean, at this point, I'm pretty sure out of all of the people she knows, we're the only ones that still continue to push limits on devices and things like that. She's asked numerous times when she's going to get a phone, and I say, I don't know, 21. I mean, as
Yeah.
long as I can hold it off,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
because I want her to I guess an example. So we put like a 3 hour time limit on her iPad during the week.
Yeah.
Um, and when that time limit runs out, that's it. But um, what does she end up doing with that extra time? Well, she's writing stories, she's drawing, she's um, you know, she's making little movies or things like that. She's very creative, but we kind of we don't force it on her, but I feel like we kind of do by saying, no, you can't just get buried in the iPad because it's an addiction. And you can very easily just get caught up in just watching videos over and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
I mean, it happens to us.
Yeah.
Um,
And we have these little brains that we're watching.
yeah, yeah. So, but by limiting her on that, she still gets that creative time. And she uses it, which is awesome. And I mean, she's writing some awesome stories.
Aw.
She developed her own characters. It was Billy Bob Joe was the name, and like we used AI one night to decide what Billy Bob Joe looked like. It was like my first little playing around with Midjourney. And so we just typed in a bunch of stuff, and it spit out this like weird dinosaur character with like a taco or something like
Oh
that.
my gosh, that's really funny because there is a
Eh,
dinosaur taco book.
oh, is it really? Oh, jeez.
Yeah, or actually, no, it was sorry, Dragons Love Tacos. That's what it's called.
Oh, nice.
But as we're starting to round out our episode here, I love the fact that we can talk about how community has helped us. It helps us continually because we're still raising our children, we're still guiding them.
Hmm.
Um, and in our art community, it's the same thing as we explore new art forms and just different things that we want to do in our life and business. Having community is amazing. Um, so we'll circle back around to a final thought on that, but I really want to get to one of your tattoo stories before we run out of time. So I would love to talk about that really fast before we wrap
Sure.
up. So do tell me, you said something about a sleeve.
Yeah, so I have it's very cold up in the Boston area, so I'm wearing a lot of layers, so I can't really show it, but um I
Tell me
have
about it.
a yeah, so I have a full sleeve. It started as a half sleeve. Um And when I started thinking it through, because I have other tattoos in areas mostly hidden, um, and I started thinking about it, and I wanted it to be Japanese. And
Mm.
I just love the look of Japanese art tattoos. And I ended up settling on a phoenix and a dragon, and there's kind of like a story behind um the a goddess stole a pearl, and the phoenix and the dragon wanted it, and I forget the specifics, but um what I read was that they were essentially a symbol for yin and yang.
Mm.
And then I saw a little side note that said husband and wife. So I was like, oh, okay. So this is kind, and this was before my daughter was born. So I got the Phoenix and the Dragon circled around the orb in kind of a yin and yang fashion, where I'm the Phoenix and my wife is the dragon. And then a little bit after my daughter was born, I wanted to turn it into a full sleeve. So I went to a different artist and we started planning some things out. And what I had read was is that the koi fish, the strongest koi to make it to the end of the river becomes a dragon.
Oh,
So I put the koi in kind of the water underneath, and that represents my daughter.
that is so
Um,
cool.
yeah. And then what's really weird is that the rest of the area, I was like, oh, let's just fill it in. I like lotuses. The lotuses look great. Let's put a lotus there. Our dog Wesley, when we first got him, and I didn't even think about this right away. The name that he was given at the breeder was Lotus.
Ah!
Yeah. So it was this like, wow, this is literally my family.
That is so awesome because, we all have different reasons for running off and getting tattoos. I love that yours is so distinct to your family unit. That is
Mm,
so fun. The fact that you have it all on your arm, right? Like you said, it's like,
hmm.
is it from wrist all the way up to shoulder kind of a thing?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, because like I'm very new at visible tattoos myself. Just got actually I got my alien ship that I was showing y'all. But I used to just never get anything visible because it just
You
didn't
never
want
know.
to. And then now like some people just they have no problem doing visible tattoos. And I are you one of those people that if somebody walks up to you and say, "Can you tell me about your arm tattoo?" Are you one of those people that'd be like, "Yeah, I'll tell you all about it." Or you just like put a sleeve on and just don't worry about people talking to you?
I live in Boston, so
You always have sleeves on?
and that and we probably don't like people talking to us. There's that. We're not as nice up here as I mean we are. We are in our own way. I shouldn't say that. But we can be not known for our niceness, I guess. Sorry. Anyway.
I
Um
love that though, because when I think about everybody I see tattooed, I like to say that like you don't assume that everybody with a whole bunch of tattoos wants to talk about it or it's not an attention thing. It's a self-expression thing, right? It's like
yeah.
at least that's how I see it. Even my pink hair, like people won't believe me that this is who I am. Like it's a representation of how I
Hmm.
feel inside sometimes. But people are like, no, that's like really attention and obnoxious. And I was like, well, that's not my intention, really.
Well, and that's a good point because a lot of people get tattoos to represent something that happened to them, maybe
Yes.
something bad that, or there's someone passing or something along those lines that they want
A
to
lot of memorials.
memorialize.
Yep.
And you never really know what can of worms you're going to be opening up when when you ask someone about that. So, for all someone knows, that could be what mine represents. But I
Yeah.
mean, when people ask me about it, I do talk about it. It doesn't bother me at all. The hard part is some of the other ones, there's a few that are just kind of random, like the ones on my legs that I don't regret because, at the time it made sense, in uh, early 2000s.
That's so funny.
Um, yeah, when tribal was the thing. Yep. Um, Glad those are easily hidden though. I mean, not in a bad way, but it's just I don't regret them. At the time, it made sense. So I still look back and I have the memories of that time when I got that tattoo.
And that also kind of wraps up our conversation about community because we also know that learning how to talk to other people also forms new communities. And especially with people with tattoos, we always have that instant connection where we like, yeah, it's the same thing with the color, the Technicolor hair, as I can see
Yeah.
somebody across the way and say, yeah, those are cool people.
Yeah.
At least that's how I see it. That's how I see it a lot of times. As we round out our talk here today, thank you again so much, Tim, for coming on. It has been
Thank you for
so
having
much
me.
fun to have a few minutes with you. It's already flown by. I can't believe it.
I
But
know.
what should we leave everybody with today as far as community, whether it's parenting, whether it's business, art, tattoo peoples? What should we leave them with today as far as community?
I mean, I think it's really just in whatever it is, like you said, in art, in parenting, if you feel like you don't have enough of a support group in a specific area of your life, find people that that can relate to you, and that you can relate to them, and spend time talking to them, learn who they are, um and really just and allow them to help you, and work together, if that makes sense. I
I was gonna say, yeah, it's one thing about, being in a community versus circling the outskirts of a community. And for
hmm
those that are just so closed off, I'm gonna leave y'all with find a way to be open to some new opportunities for a community because we can't do it alone.
hmm
And it's really, really difficult to do it alone.
and you know what, if one doesn't exist in a certain area,
Yes, you
start
may
one,
have to make one.
make one, help you'll be helping other people by doing that.
And I think and that's another thing I took away from another convention I went to right after PPC was we all have more in common than we think. And I think that
hmm
is something that can bring us all together is our commonalities. And I hope everybody out there listening goes to explore that. Thank you again, Tim, for coming on today. We're about to
thank
run out of
you.
time. And I will talk to you soon, everybody. Stay tuned for the next episode of Tattoos and Toddlers. Bye.
Bye.